Victory for the unborn. Lawmakers debate a budget deal to keep the government open. One senator says it will include good news for pro-lifers. Opening ceremonies. The Winter Olympic flame is lit in Beijing amid flickering shadows of global politics and boycotts. Vatican message. A report from Rome on what Pope Francis is saying to athletes at the Beijing Games. And classy approach. How one bishop in Ohio is putting a unique twist on Catholic Schools Week. On EWTN News Nightly for Friday, February 4th, 2022. Thank you so much for being with us tonight on this feast of St. Joseph of Leonessa. I'm Tracy Sable. Well, the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics are finally underway with a spectacular opening. Fireworks welcome participating athletes from around the world. The ceremonies took place in the Bird's Nest Stadium built for the 28 Summer Olympics, making Beijing the first city to host both events. Several nations, including the U.S., are diplomatically boycotting the Games to protest China's alleged human rights abuses. More on the Games later on, but first, the U.S. government runs out of money in 2 weeks. Lawmakers are still trying to agree on spending levels and policies for this budget year. Republicans say that they got a big win that could save the lives of the unborn. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales reports.
This is major news. I spoke with Senator James Lankford, who sits on the Appropriations Committee, and listen to this, folks. He assures me that Hyde Amendment protections that prevents taxpayer dollars from being used to fund abortions and other pro-life protections will be included in the next 2022 government funding spending bill.
I've actually talked to some of the leaders in the negotiation yesterday about this. They're assuring me Hyde protections are going to be there, Weldon protections are going to be there. They're saying news. All of those things are going to be there. They're not going to budge on that.
Senator Lankford says he wants to see it in writing. This is the first confirmation that pro-life protections will be included in the 2022 budget. Lawmakers are still working on a top-line spending number. The current funding runs out February 18th. Republican leadership tells me they're doubtful an agreement can be reached before the deadline, and some Democrats agree.
We're still discussing whether a final appropriations bill is possible. That would be my preference, or CR. One way or the other, shutting down the government is really not an option.
Senator Mike Braun would like to see an overhaul of the budget process.
This is all part of a broken system when you're talking about getting spending done for a year that ended several months ago, and that every year we borrow between $1 trillion and now $1.5 trillion to pay for our current needs.
As the Winter Olympics begin in Beijing, the U.S. House passed a bill aimed at improving economic competition with China, like bringing microchip production back to the United States. Senator Jon Thune has some issues with the bill.
Unfortunately, again, what happened in the House of Representatives is they moved it way left, and they put a bunch of provisions in there that are designed to help out their union brethren.
Again, pro-life provisions will be included in the next government funding spending bill, a stark contrast from just a few months ago when House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, a self-proclaimed practicing Catholic, told me that no pro-life provisions will be included in the bill, and there's no negotiating. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
President Joe Biden today touted the, quote, extraordinary resilience and grit of the American people and American capitalism. He says the January jobs report exceeded expectations, but the Heritage Foundation warned in a tweet today our national debt is at an unprecedented $30 trillion. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen?
Tracy, the president says America's job machine is going stronger than ever. 467,000 jobs added in January, more than what was expected, but not everyone is impressed. Things like high gas prices continuing to inflict severe pain.
President Joe Biden addresses the latest jobs report.
America is back to work. Today we learned that in January our economy created 467,000 jobs.
And the president laid out some more numbers.
This morning's report caps off my first year as president. And over that period, our economy created 6.6 million jobs.
But the Heritage Foundation tweeting today, labor force participation is just 62.2%, one of the lowest levels since 1977. And nearly 3 million of the jobs lost during the pandemic still remain lost. Earlier, U.S. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell slammed Democrats on Twitter, writing, "Democrats' reckless spending has fueled the worst inflation in 40 years. Families are hurting at the checkout counter, at the gas pump, when they pay their bills." Exactly what bipartisan experts warned would happen if they rammed through their reckless far-left spending. The president in his speech also pointed to higher wages, but acknowledged financial pain.
Average people are getting clobbered by the cost of everything today. Gas prices at the pump are up. We're working to bring them down, but they're up. Food prices are up. Working to bring them down as well.
The president's labor secretary weighed in.
I think what we're seeing here is we're seeing businesses learning to live with their employees during a pandemic.
And in the press briefing room, a swipe at the previous administration.
I would note that the president has been clear. We're not pushing lockdowns. We've not been pro-lockdown. That has not been his agenda. Most of the lockdowns actually happened under the previous president.
President Biden heads for Delaware tonight, and on the Omicron front, new COVID cases are falling in 49 of the 50 states, but the overall death toll from the pandemic is approaching nearly 900,000 Americans. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
Well, as the Beijing Winter Olympics get underway, safety concerns continue to grow for athletes and journalists alike. Yesterday, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi warned athletes participating in the Games not to comment on China's abuses because it is better not to, quote, risk incurring the anger of the Chinese government because they are ruthless. Meanwhile, a Dutch journalist who was reporting on the opening ceremonies was dragged away by Chinese security live on the air. And joining me now is Jon Schweppe, Director of Policy and Government Affairs at the American Principles Project. Jon, welcome back. Great to see you. A lot to get to today, but I want to start with the Olympics. Your thoughts on the Games and also Speaker Pelosi's warning to the athletes.
Well, normally we look at the Olympics as something exciting for the whole world to enjoy. This year, there's a dark, ominous cloud over the Olympics. It actually is reminiscent of the 1936 Olympics in Berlin. We have a power here in China that's committing genocide against its own people. And, our own athletes are in danger there. They do not have freedom of speech or anything like that. And it's really kind of a scary thing. So, we see all these things, a lot of propaganda that the Chinese government's going to be putting out there. We want our American athletes, obviously, to do well. They've worked hard to get where they are, but this is kind of something to keep an eye on, and it is very dangerous.
Yeah, Jon, something else I want to talk about regarding the Olympics really quickly. It's raising a lot of eyebrows. The Uyghur athlete who was chosen to be one of the final torchbearers at the opening ceremony. I'd like to get your take on that and the message you think that China was trying to send.
Well, I'll remind folks, this happened at the 1936 Olympics as well. There was an athlete named Helene Meyer, who was Jewish, who fled to America and then was actually brought back to Germany to compete for the Nazis, presumably under threat to her family. This is, the situation here. You can't necessarily trust that this is a free person acting of their own volition when you have Uyghur Muslims in Chinese concentration camps. And so, again, this is just a very problematic, doesn't even get into it. It's a dangerous situation, and I think our leaders are right to want to do diplomatic boycotts.
Yeah, I want to pivot here just a bit. I want to talk about Facebook. Their stock took a nosedive yesterday, dropping 26%. I want to talk a little bit more about that and the reason for that steep decline. What do you think?
Well, I think Wall Street was reacting to a couple things. They've had slowed growth on users and that sort of thing. But also, Mark Zuckerberg has taken a very strange tack in the last couple months. He's really promoted, obviously renamed their company Meta, and he's promoting this idea where their new business model is trying to create the world from the Matrix. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that. It's very strange. And I think Wall Street didn't like it, didn't like what they heard on the earnings call, and reacted by selling off.
Yeah, and Spotify is another one that's been in the spotlight over Joe Rogan, the popular podcaster. Some artists said that they are giving, an ultimatum to Spotify, remove Joe Rogan, or they're going to remove their music from the platform. Your thoughts on that and what that signals?
It's dangerous. Look, as America has always prided itself on free speech, we're seeing the left continue to push against that. Even the Obamas are being talked about as possibly leaving the Spotify platform now, all because Joe Rogan asks questions and has people on who are questioning the prevailing mainstream media narrative. It's really dangerous for speech, and it's something to keep an eye on because, once people feel like they can't speak out, we're not really a free democracy anymore, and I think that's really a problem.
Yeah, John, not a whole lot of time left, but I want to talk about something that's a little closer to home. I know, too, you want to talk about Loudoun County, Virginia, and I know that's been on your radar as well. Students there are now being threatened with suspension for not following the school district's mask mandate. Now, that's even though an executive order by the governor makes those masks optional, and I understand there are some lawsuits now on the table. What more can you tell us about this?
Well, I think you're seeing courageous student protest, which there's a long history of in this country. And, these students are standing up for what they believe the law is because Governor Youngkin has proclaimed it that way. He was elected, and these school districts aren't obeying it. So hopefully the lawsuits go the right way.
All right, we're going to leave it right there. John, always appreciate your time and analysis. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, a new law in South Dakota prohibits transgender athletes from competing in sports leagues for girls and women. At a signing ceremony, Governor Kristi Noem says that it will assure competitive fairness for female athletes from grades K through 12 and also at the university level. 9 other states have similar laws which are confronting court challenges. Officials in Austria are set to begin a mandate requiring most adults to be vaccinated against COVID-19. The measure passed its final approval yesterday. It requires residents over the age of 18 to receive the vaccine and is believed to be the first of its kind in Europe. Police will begin checking vaccination status next month. In Afghanistan, the Taliban has set up a, quote, religious police force, and it is stoking further fears about the state of the country. The religious force is present at checkpoints at many main roads there. The Taliban says officers will only talk with people. Residents say the checkpoints are being used to ensure Islamic law is being followed. And there are concerns the Taliban is returning to its harsh tactics employed back in the 1990s. Coming up, for a limited time, there will be a new statue at the Vatican. We'll explain. And what Pope Francis is saying about the relationship between Christians and Muslims. When Pope Francis prays the Angelus this Sunday, he and the faithful will see a special sculpture of St. Josephine Bakhita in St. Peter's Square. The display anticipates her feast as patron of human trafficking victims. It also accompanies Tuesday's International Day of Prayer on their behalf. The smaller replica will find a new setting in Rome. 3 full-size versions will go to the U.S., Europe, and Canada, the home of its creator, Timothy Schmalz. Pope Francis calls for greater understanding and dialogue between Christians and Muslims.
La fratellanza è uno dei valori fondamentali e universali.
In a video message on the anniversary of a landmark Christian-Muslim peace initiative, the Holy Father notes that we all live under the same heaven and we are all different but equal. On this date in 2019, Pope Francis and a leader in the Islamic faith signed the landmark initiative in Abu Dhabi. With the start of the Winter Olympic Games, Pope Francis sent a message to the athletes emphasizing that inclusive sport is the true gold medal. The Holy See, as always, will follow this important sporting event. EWTN Vatican Bureau Chief Andreas Thonhauser has more.
Yes, good evening, Tracy. I'm here at the Vatican with Monsignor Melchor Sanchez de Toca, who is the Undersecretary of the Pontifical Council for the Culture and responsible for all matters related to sport. He's the most prominent figure here in the Vatican to speak about the beginning Olympic Winter Games in China. Monsignor, the world today looks at China and looks at the start of the Olympic Games. What role does the Vatican play?
Well, the Vatican does not have an Olympic committee, but Pope Francis is very close to the Olympic Games. He has sent messages to the opening of the Olympic Games to Rio, Pyeongchang, Tokyo, and now to Beijing, to the Olympic and Paralympic Games. So they are close at Pope's heart and therefore at the heart of the church.
On Wednesday in the general audience, the Pope reminded us also that sport actually can play a very important role in building bridges between cultures, between people, and also help us to build friendships. How do you see that? And how important are, for example, such prominent games, sport games like the Olympic Games, and what role do they have in this regard?
Well, we have seen many times there is a diplomacy, the ping pong diplomacy. Sport offers an easy way to connect people. It's up to us to follow and to maintain these bridges that the sport can easily lay down. It's not magic, it's not ideal, as every human reality is twofold. It has a dark side and the bright side. We foster and like the bright side of sport.
You're also involved with a group called Atletica Vaticana, so basically something like the Vatican's own sports team. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about this, and will we ever see the Vatican competing at the Olympic Games?
Well, Atletica Vaticana is a sports association for Vatican citizens, very small number, residents and employees. It's a multi-sports association. It's the embryo of something, but the goal of Atletica Vatican is not to win for medals, because it would be impossible. It is not to represent the superiority of the Catholic Church or Catholics in the world of sports, but simply being present in the world of sports, bringing the Pope Francis's message, which is lately the message of the gospel, is Jesus Christ in every world, in every environment where human beings are.
And Monsignor, if you allow me a personal question at the end, are you also a sportsman? And if yes, which sports do you prefer?
Well, my nickname in social networks is modest runner, which is what I am, a very modest runner. Yes, I like practicing sport rather than watching, but it's the world where I live.
Monsignor, thank you so much. And Tracy, with an encouragement to do also more sports to our viewers and maybe also becoming modest runners like Monsignor, I give back to you.
Up next, a bishop in Ohio is headed back to school. We'll explain. Well, they are Lions for Life, Catholic grade school intercessors who pray for young mothers and their babies and to end abortion. These students attend St. Thomas More School in Centennial, Colorado, near Denver. They meet before school once a month to pray a pro-life rosary. Their Lions for Life program has been active for more than 10 years. God bless them. A bishop in Ohio is celebrating National Catholic Schools Week by visiting every Catholic school in his diocese. Bishop Jeffrey Monforton has visited classrooms with students from kindergarten through the 12th grade. He encourages students to ask him questions about faith and the church. And Bishop Jeffrey Monforton from the Diocese of Steubenville, Ohio, joins us now. Your Excellency, thank you so much for your time. Great to have you on. I want to talk about your visits with the students, but first, can you quickly tell us about the Catholic schools in your diocese and what they're doing to celebrate National Catholic Schools Week?
Absolutely, Tracy. It's great to be with you. Praise be Jesus Christ, now and forever. We have 2 high schools, a junior high, and then we also have 8 grade schools in the diocese. And we span about a 4.5-hour drive north to south. And so what I do is I begin in the far south. It's about a 4.5-hour drive from Steubenville, and I work my way north. I celebrate Mass for every one of the schools. So this bishop's binating a lot during the week and have the opportunity to visit each one of the classrooms to do an impromptu Ask the Bishop. That's amazing. So what inspired you to do this? Well, I think it's good for the students to know that their faith is relevant. And I conducted a Ask the Bishop article in my paper for 7 years. And I would ask the K through 12 to submit questions. My thought is if they have questions about their faith, that means their faith matters. And I want to add emphasis to it by having the bishop visit their classroom to show them just how relevant their faith is. And I love it from kindergarten to 12th grade. The questions, of course, are age specific. And I think it's very helpful, especially like the older grades talking about the compatibility of religion and science.
Yeah, and let me ask you this. Have you received, What kind of feedback have you received from the children, and what kind of questions are they asking you?
Well, I've got a lot of cards back at home with a lot of results of a lot of I guess you say crayons. So there's a great response. I mean, obviously we look at the kids, the older teenagers, they're a little more, let's say, reluctant. They're more self-conscious, whereas the like the first and second graders are all over the place. Second grade, we talk a lot about the sacrament of penance as well as the sacrament of the Eucharist. We go further on into the other grades, and especially when it comes to, let's say, the teenagers. We talk about the relevance of science and faith, not to mention also just what it took for God to create the universe. I think one of the pictures I had provided you, where I talk about the percentage of how perfectly God had to hit the law of gravity at the beginning of the universe. It wasn't 99% of the law. He had to nail it. And he did just that. And so we talk a lot about science and also the relevance of the Bible in their lives for the students to know that they're actually embarking into, as a friend of mine has an apostolate called Acts 29. We know there are only 28 chapters to Acts, but we are on that Acts 29.
I think it's absolutely wonderful. Now, where are you in the process of visiting all the schools? And also, is this something that you're going to maybe do again next year?
I do it every year. I've done it since I became bishop 9 years ago, and I will continue to do it for Catholic Schools Week. Mother Nature thwarted me with an ice wall, literally, on Thursday. And so I have Thursday and Friday schools to remake, as we say in academic terminology. I prayed for no snow Thursday and Friday. The kids prayed for snow Thursday and Friday. We know God has favorites. Contrary to what we read, God has favorites, and the bishop is lower in the food chain when it comes to God. So, but I'll be out there. So I still have some schools in Belmont County as well as in Jefferson County here.
Yeah, I know the kids love their snow days. I know that.
Oh my, yes, I did too.
Well, I want to ask you this, something very interesting also out of Steubenville. We read about a time capsule back from 1924 that was placed in a cornerstone of a Catholic high school in Steubenville that was recently unearthed. What more can you tell us about that discovery, and also what did it reveal about the life of Catholics from nearly 100 years ago in your area?
Well, we had a good number of students that were at the school. It began, well, we had combined grade school, high school, and there became too many students in the school. So they built originally a one-floor school, 4 rooms, where the building used to stand. Unfortunately, we had to demolish it because it was unfit for occupation, actually dangerous. But then eventually they added floors to it because the student body grew to the point that they would have over 100 students graduating each year. And that location is the original Steubenville Catholic Central, which has now moved to a larger campus. We have information there regarding certainly the church itself. Ironically enough, the first, I guess you would say, pastor of the parish in the 19th century ended up becoming a bishop in Columbus, Bishop Hartley. So we do have a connection there. Even though Steubenville was broken off by Columbus, we also provided, of course, in this area, Steubenville, Columbus, with one of its bishops. And we have some coinage there too, actually a coin commemorating Pope Pius XI as well. A lot of it is time sensitive to that era. It's, again, 1924. It's too bad we couldn't wait a couple more years, but the building, unfortunately, was unsafe, and we worked with the city to bring it down. But thank the Lord that in the cornerstone, we found that time capsule.
That is amazing. And Your Excellency, thank you so much for your time today. It was wonderful speaking with you, and thank you for all you do. God bless you.
God bless you, Teresa. God bless all of our viewers. Thank you. Bye now.
And we thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. Good night and God bless.